variable rates and rather to a single rate, and therefore making it simpler to implement.
So just to add to that, I think the Davis Commission, one of the recommendations was not to go with the variable rate on that.
Last one. Don't you think then the country could choose what industries or sectors should grow if you look at growth for the country? So you can choose now to have a lesser VAT on a certain industry that needs to grow and tax luxury vehicles, overseas vehicles on a VAT.
A differentiated VAT is an administrative nightmare. It makes the administrative burden so complex that one really wonders whether the administration justifies differentiation in income. If you want to make imported vehicles more expensive, raise the import tax on them. But tax becomes a dangerous instrument, especially VAT, to direct behavior. So I really have my doubts about the suitability of a variable VAT rate for countries such as South Africa. But I must stress again, I am not in favor of a higher VAT rate. It is really regressive on poor people in South Africa. So in my view, if we need more taxes, it should be higher income taxes. Thank you very much.
Okay, can you take a question from this gentleman?
No, can I just comment about this variable VAT? Okay. I'm not totally adverse to this because, I mean, people who have got impossible tastes have to cater for them. And if we have got variable tastes and some have got more humble tastes and the like, and others would like to have got more aggressive tastes and they would like to aspire to buying certain things and the like. I have a lot of respect for the point which is being made that it would, and I have no doubt about it, it would be an administrative nightmare. But the principle, I'm looking at the principle of it makes sense. And perhaps I would imagine that if anybody were to look at that, they would make a thorough study of that and see how it could be manageable. But the principle of variable vetting to me, it's not so bad. But anyway, I suppose, especially when it comes to tax, maybe there's nothing very good, there's nothing very bad. Perhaps that's the integral nature of a budget and revenue collection. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Paladi in private practice. My concern is about the revenue collection from the public. I don't think government is doing enough. When I look on, especially on NGOs, the people who are saving on NGOs who are getting paid high amount of remuneration without being taxed, I think government must implement some mechanism to get those people to be taxed. They can recover enough from the NGOs, councillors.
Okay, that sounds more like a comment, and I do understand that. I mean, if you have anybody from SARS, they will be very much delighted to hear that, and they will probably be talking to you. And I think they do have a mechanism in which things like those can be reported to them. The other comment that I just wanted to make around the whole issue of VAT versus personal tax is that when you look at VAT sometimes it catches everybody. Okay, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. It's good in the sense that you have a lot of informal sector, and some of those people in the informal sector are also very rich. So they don't pay PAYE because they're possible owning their own businesses. And it's not viable for the tax authorities to have any mechanism of actually getting them into the system. So that's the positive aspect. But I do understand that there are also negative aspects about it. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to take possibly maybe 3 questions, and then we'll close after that.
I just want to respond to Kolani's remark about NGOs who are not paying people high salaries who are not taxed. I don't have specific knowledge about that. I am very concerned going forward, however, that we may see a similar dispensation for politicians in South Africa, where they will raise taxes for other people and start paying themselves tax-free allowances. This is a spot that we should, an area that we should really watch very closely and guard against very closely. Politicians have politicians are politicians. So we will really have to be very diligent to make sure that politicians don't start taxing other people differently from themselves. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Fani Gutierrez. I'm CFO of a steel company. And my question is around the incentives from the DTI. We have experienced lots of issues around the MCEP program, and I would like to know if there's been any clarity on that or an indication how it's going to be easier to access those funds despite following the set rules.
And I don't know if one of the speakers would like to take that. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. In yesterday's speech, the minister did touch on the Department of Trade and Industry, the monitoring that they are going to be doing on the incentive schemes. So there seems to be attention that will be directed at all the incentive schemes and the realignment and also the monitoring thereof. So hopefully there will be something that will happen.
Just in particular on the MSEP, the biggest concern is that people, they apply and they promise that they are going to be starting certain projects, and they don't finish those projects. And now you have all these funds that have been reserved for that. Now they have to be channeled elsewhere because they don't seem to be achieving the objective. But as Faith pointed out, there's an investigation that is actually looking at that. In fact, combined with that, they are also looking at R&D, because there's been a low uptake now for R&D since 2012 when they changed the legislation.
Good morning, I'm Johan Jellers. I would just like to, my first question direct to the professor. He touched on the whole subject of inequality and putting a higher tax on certain amounts above $1 million and $2 million. But in terms of, how I see it, I'm not an economist, is that we've got an oversupply of unskilled labor and an undersupply of skilled or professional educated people. I didn't feel that there was too many comments about education and how we are going to focus on getting the people to study for cheaper and get more access to universities and schooling in order to get the people more skilled, more educated, and that would automatically, over a period of time, address the inequality in the country, I believe. And my second point I would like to ask Judge Mwete is, and this is the experience I've been having working with SOEs, is that at SOEs our clients are guilty until proven innocent. And it's really, sometimes it feels like they're treating your clients as criminals before you can actually prove them that they are just decent taxpayers. So where do you get to that point to get SOEs to actually recognize that they are delivering us a service and not we to them? So that's my 2 questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Jellers. You are touching on 3 things in the questions directed to me, namely funding of universities, over and undersupply of skilled and unskilled labour, inequality and higher taxes. On the funding of universities, indeed, the Minister has addressed the shortfall in university fees over the next 3 years as a result of the decision that university fees will not increase going forward. So he addressed the question of no increases in university fees. Naturally, The campaign was about fees must fall. The government has not yet given any commitment around that. President Zuma has appointed a presidential review committee commission of university funding, so it is difficult to speculate about the further possible rollout in that area, other than to say that at university level, the funding shortfall had been addressed over the next 3 years. At primary school level, secondary school level, call it basic education level, we saw in the budget speech that 510 schools will be rebuilt. What I would have wanted to see is more management capacity in dysfunctional schools. I would have wanted to hear more rollout about that. We can probably expect that in the budget speech of the Minister of Basic Education and Training. Then you are of course right when you talk about oversupply of unskilled labour, undersupply of skilled labour, and to fix that is really a long-term project through fixing the education system. And then inequality and higher taxes. Naturally, the nature of every tax system is such that you tax the more fortunate people in the community and you give that money to the less fortunate people in the community. Perhaps it's sufficient if I say in South Africa we have a large population of poor people, 16.5 million people getting social grants. In the final analysis, it is actually a privilege to be a taxpayer. It means you are really not poor. So perhaps some of us should just sit back sometimes and say, thank you for the privilege to be able to be a taxpayer. Thank you very much.
Just to add on the skills shortage, I think we were all worried because with the Minister of Education, of Higher Education, has started the process of rationalization of the SETAs, and we were not sure what's going to come out of the budget. And looking at the detail of the budget, there is a 2 billion growth per year for at least the next 3 budgets that has been allocated to the SETAs. So that should, in a way, if they are reducing the number of SETAs that we have and focusing on those that are delivering and also improving the skill, on filling the skills gap, then we should see an improvement towards the skills shortage or addressing of the skills shortage.
Sometimes these days, especially, I wonder was Professor Kada Asmal right in closing down technicons? I'm not so sure. Sometimes I'm not so sure now because of the end product, the quality and nature of the end product we have out of universities. It might very well be that some people used to argue that technicons produce people who were more ready and attuned to going straight into work with skills and the like. I don't know. But the point, I'm trying to comment on the first point that you made about education. I was, in this speech, I thought it focused education, yes, perhaps, especially higher education when it came to allocating more money, university and the like. But I would have liked to have had more directly speaking to not so much, not only university education, but generally the provision of skills. Because too many people think that the only way out, the best way for you to improve your life is to go to a university. I think maybe we should disillusion people of that, and then, of course, provide them with training facilities other than university, which would provide them with direct skills. And maybe he could have said a little bit more about that, which he hasn't. Now, moving on to the second point that you raised. You see, I think SARS employs about 14,000 people, 15,000 people, I'm not so sure. And for a very long time, perhaps like most revenue authorities throughout the world, They believe that they've got certain powers, which they exercise almost without due regard to the right of people. The nature of tax collection, the system, has been designed and has always been like that, the world over that. It adopts a robust attitude of you are guilty until you prove yourself innocent. That is how it is. That's why it's unpopular. The system throughout the world is unpopular. And perhaps ironically, that's the only way they can raise a lot of money. But you need to mitigate that. And to try and mitigate that, that is why Parliament created this office that I'm occupying. Now, hopefully, because it's a new office, it will only be 3 years old sometime in September. But it is dealing with entrenched culture, a culture that has been there for years and years, where nobody would go to SARS people and say, why did you do this? Why didn't you do this? While this person is still waiting for the outcome of their objection, why did you then go and attach the property and the like? For a very long time, for all these years, there hasn't been any mechanism that would confront them and ask that question. Now, as a new office, we're trying to do that. But we're dealing with a culture that has been entrenched over many years. But we interact with SARS to try and encourage them not just to think that they're above the law or they can deal with people as they wish. We have got certain activities that we engage with them. We've agreed to draw up certain memorandum of understanding and the like, and we have requested of them, for example, to provide, to produce a bill of rights for the taxpayer, so that once they produce that bill of rights, we'll be able to hold them against that particular bill of rights, and so on and so forth. But you're dealing with a culture that has been there for many, many years. And it will take time. And as I said, employing about 14,000, 15,000 people, there are people who might be better prone to understanding the taxpayer better, but there are others who may not. But it's about dealing with a culture that has been there over many years. And much as I'm optimistic and much as I've derived a lot of pleasure in this office helping many people, including help them release funds in millions sometimes, much as I'm optimistic about that, I think it's going to take time to deal with that culture and temper it a bit. Thanks. I hope I've answered you. You can elaborate if I missed your point. I'll come back to it.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Shirley Olsen, and perhaps I listened to both the budget speech as well as all the speakers' speeches with a different ear. I'm no longer in practice, but very involved in governance. And one of the things that I picked up on the budget speech yesterday, and I'm very, very excited about it, and I'd like the committee to comment on it, was what Judge also commented on, as well as he alluded to it in his speech. And that was the positivity of opening up the SOEs. As we all know, state-owned entities are meant to aid the budget deficit every year. They're meant to actually bring income into the government, and that hasn't happened for many years. So whilst as accountants we look at the short-term aspect of the budget, and certainly I think this morning has focused more on the short-term aspects of the budget, and it is very boring and very basic, and there wasn't anything exciting in it. I'd like a little bit of time just to spend on the long-term effect that could have. And whilst I haven't had time to read the budget, I'd like to know if there was any sort of mechanisms in timing and how they actually see that happening. Obviously, the sooner the better, because I think in the medium and long term, they can definitely assist the government coffers. Thank you.
Just on the SOEs, the one mention that was made in the budget is to look at those SOEs that are duplicating services from a provincial to a national level. They are going to be dealing with that. And also the non-performing, because you kind of indicated the importance of the delivery from the SOEs and making sure that they are meeting the mandate that they have been established for. Again, we understand it's not a short-term thing, it will be a long-term process. And whilst he didn't give any indications as to the timing of that, but alluding to the possible merger between SAA and SA Express, again, that means thinking is going towards that, which was not, they were happy with SAA running, and he even indicated that we cannot continue to fund non-performing SOEs. So hopefully he is going to take the whip out and crack it. Time will only tell.
Just to add to that, he was also adamant on there isn't going to be any more bailouts for the SOEs going forward.
Okay. Just remember, just to add on, he actually mentioned SAA, and well.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Nene, what happens if you touch that, but he has done so.
I think, ladies and gentlemen, we are much more enlightened now about the budget speech that was delivered yesterday than we were about 2 hours ago. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the speakers who came here, in particular the judge, because I know I sit in the checks court and I know how difficult it is sometimes to get hold of judges. So it was really great, and I think we need to give another round of applause given the fact that he was supposed to go to Cape Town. And he decided to sacrifice that to come here and be with us. I think that let's give another round of applause. In fact, I think there are a few things that I would like us to take away. I know that the points have been made about what has happened in the budget speech, capital gains tax, changes and all of that. I think you as accountants, you need to look at the impact of the whole thing. Some of you, and I'm going to talk from my own experience. We had a situation some time back where just because of the change in the legislation, that was not going to give any effect to cash tax flows. And a company was going to now have liabilities that were going to exceed assets. I do understand that most of your clients, they do recognize deferred tax on revaluation of their assets. There's a corresponding deferred tax liability that comes with that. So if there's any change in the tax legislation, I think you need to consider that in the context of going concern, because you may think that it's something that is small. And you may find that some of the funders, they say, the moment you put liabilities exceeding assets, you need to pay your liability immediately. So you may think that it's just an accounting entry. It could have a devastating effect on some of your clients. Those are some of the things that I think you should actually be considering. The other point that I don't know, I think maybe Professor Rousseau would help us next time when we have a gathering like this to say, if we are worried about things like, for example, the downgrade to a jump status, to what extent are some of the funders of this country are going to say we need our money immediately? Because we've seen it happening in Greece. Hopefully we're not going to get to that level. And it all depends on the agreements between the funders and the South African government. Those are some of the things that I think are actually critical. The issue of seeing value for money, which was mentioned by Judge, in terms of what we see in the bill of our government, the salary bill, I hope as and when they cut the cost of the salary bill, that is not going to result in an increase in consultants' costs. Because sometimes you've got critical skills that you may need to replace, and if those people are leaving, which is something that is natural, sometimes if you want to reduce your staff complement, the people who want to leave are those who are competent. I hope that in return you're not going to see a bill of consultants going up, and one may think that maybe if that bill is going to save our members, that would be a good thing. I do not know. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Good to see you. That is the